A few years ago, when I was at the Spalding Guardian, I went to an inquest for a young mum in her 20s, and it's always stuck with me, this case, because of the particularly tragic and horrific circumstances in which this girl died. She was at a house party with her partner. They'd had a few to drink and done some drugs as well, and an argument occurred between the two of them. She got in their car, wearing her high heels, shot off down the road at high speed, came to the end of the road. It was a T-junction, and she shot off the edge. The car did a 180-degree spin, so she ended up upside down, middle of the night, freezing cold water, and she drowned pretty quickly in darkness. Must have been absolutely horrendous, the last few moments of her life. So nobody could remember exactly what caused this argument, as I say, but what was beyond dispute was that when she died, she was above the drink-drive limit. I've been to quite a few inquests where either the person that died or another person who was involved in the death was above the drink-drive limit. And they're always particularly traumatic because you think to yourself, could that have been avoided? Could it have been prevented if the participants hadn't been drinking too much and then they got behind the wheel of their car? And we'll never know. We'll never know because drinking affects people in different ways. There's no fail-safe guide on how to stay under the drink-drive limit and whether drinking will affect you in the same way. It's dependent on gender, it's dependent on your age, how much you've had to drink, how stressed you are, your metabolism. I'm quite small, and I made the decision a few years ago, after going to court and going to these various inquests, that if I've had anything to drink at all, I won't drive. I'm not being judgmental, I'm not being pious about it, it's just a decision that I've made, mainly because I think to myself, if I had an accident, even if I was just under the drink-drive limit, I would always think to myself, did that alcohol have an effect on my driving? Were my reactions as quick? Was I able to see as clearly or notice things as quickly as I would have been able to had I not been drinking? And the thing is, only because of the job that I used to do I know the legal drink-drive limit, but not everyone knows that. In fact, according to research from Red Driving School, 79% of young people don't know the drink-drive limits. Now, the Christmas period has just finished. You may be participating in Dry January. If you are, good luck to you. Typically, alcohol consumption goes up by about 40% in December. I've just done some research for my workplace where I contacted all of the 45 police forces in the country to find out the number of drink driving offences that occur around the Christmas months over the past few years. And it showed that in some counties, police forces, drink driving offences and arrests went up by as much as 60%, 40, 50, 60%. And in fact, in a lot of countries, not in the UK, but in a lot of countries around Europe, there are different drink-drive limits for younger drivers. In some countries, it's just 0. If you drink, you're not allowed to drive at all. And then in others, as I say, it's a slightly lower threshold for young drivers, obviously because they're the ones that are most likely to drink and drive. So if there's a lower limit, maybe that will stop them from doing it, or maybe that will stop them from drinking at all. Having said that, it isn't just young drivers who drink-drive. As part of the research I did, I spoke to a paramedic called Chris Porsche. A few Christmases ago, he went out on Christmas morning, him and a colleague, and they found a car that was upside down in a ditch, and it was somebody who'd been drinking quite a lot and then decided to go out for a drive on Christmas morning. That's their Christmas ruined, and it could have been someone else's Christmas ruined if he'd smashed into another car. On another occasion, Chris and a colleague were called out to a pub where a woman appeared to be having some sort of seizure. So obviously they took her to hospital, and her husband decided to drive after the ambulance in his Jaguar car. He'd been at a pub. It was over the limit, so got to hospital. The wife was treated, and obviously the husband was arrested. It's just blind stupidity and ignorance and selfishness. And then there's the entire case of drivers who drink-drive on the morning after a party. They think that because they've had a few hours sleep, they'll be safe. Recently, Liverpool played Plymouth in the FA Cup, and the Plymouth goalkeeper, Luke McCormick, was playing, and some people might think that he's quite a lucky guy to even have a career. A few years ago, when he was a youngster, a teenager I think, he was driving to training the night after he'd had a few to drink, was still over the limit on a motorway, crashed into another car, killed two young lads. The Plymouth newspaper interviewed the family and they just want to get on with their lives, but there are two lads who don't have any lives anymore. I saw another incident recently reported in the Coventry Telegraph. Danielle Bartlett was just 17 years old when, in October 2015, she returned from a pub, was sick in a bathroom, and grabbed the keys to her uncle's car before driving off. She hit speeds of at least 69 miles an hour in a 40 mile an hour zone before colliding with the taxi 42-year-old Anna Downey was travelling in on London Road in Coventry. And Bartlett was sentenced to 3 years in jail in relation to the death of Mrs Downey, though she will spend just 18 months behind bars. Is 18 months long enough? As I say, I don't want to get too judgmental or pious about it. I just recorded this with a few views about drink driving and a few statistics that I found of interest. I'm not sure that lowering the limit would do any good. I'm not sure that increasing the punishments would do any good, because I think if you're the sort of person who drives, you're not the sort of person who would be bothered about that. You'll only face up to the consequences when they actually hit you. For me, a lot of it's about planning. I think a lot of drink drivers don't intend to drink drive, and you see that a lot in court. The number of times that defending solicitors say Mr Jones had not intended to drive that night, but various things happened which meant that for whatever reason they got behind the wheel and they drove and calamity occurred. So the next time you're thinking of driving and you've had 2 or 3 to drink, think of the consequences of what you're doing. Think of the worst possible scenario that could occur from what you're about to do. Think of that scenario, hold it in your mind for a minute or two, and then ring up a taxi instead.